What's going on, everybody? I want to talk about this book, The Warning, Testimonies, Prophecies, Illumination of Conscience, the very popular, extremely popular Catholic book that if you're on Amazon just looking for Catholic books, you've probably at least seen this up. Odds are you may have this book. I bought this book, I believe, in 2020, which I'll talk about. That might be a pivotal year, which I think might have helped its success. Not just in this book, but I think in a lot of books that are talking about more so end times, a lot of prophecies, mystic type stories. And I'll first start off by saying I'm in no intention going to try to defame the author, defame the book, individuals featured in the book. But I do want to talk about, I think, some issues that are, in my opinion, the problems with this book, my kind of warning signs that have been going off since I read it. And, you know, I'll be honest, when I had warning signs with it, literal warning signs, I didn't think about that, from reading the warning. When I kind of saw it pop up, wasn't really interested in reading it. Then when I read it, I'm like, well, it was an entertaining book for sure. Maybe I can get into that too. And then I enjoyed it. But still, there were some stories in there, individuals and characters that I researched on YouTube and heard their stories a little bit that had kind of the alarm going off. My skeptic alarm was going off. Same way I kind of feel at Medjugorje. I've said a couple videos in this before on the channel that, you know, Medjugorje is one of those things that I kind of leave up in the air. I've gotten deep in the rabbit hole on either side and know a lot of personal people that feel very strongly either for it or against it. Some people I know have gone there 10 plus times and they're big believers in it. I digress though. So I don't want to knock people's thoughts and beliefs in any particular thing, but I think there are something that is important to kind of consider when we look at these books. And the reason I'm even making this video is for my nephew, who I actually bought this book for because he was into reading Catholic books. I'm like, oh, he might find this like entertaining. And I don't think my intention was to get it for him as like a literal warning of things to come, but I think I just got it for more of an entertainment value. And he never even got a chance to read it. I think my sister, his mom, didn't let him read it, which maybe might have been for a good reason. But so, anyways, I digress. But he's actually the one who reminded me of this thing and looking to Father Rodrigue and talked about there were some issues with the book, which I haven't thought about the book recently, even gone back to even read it. But then I do remember, some of those things, and made me kind of go into look into Father Rodrigue again. Watch a couple of his videos, and Let Me End This Channel by Miles Morari. I think that means the Soldier of Mary. This great underrated channel, if you guys are interested. He made a couple of videos about the warning and Father Rodrigue specifically. Again, no intention of defaming Father Rodrigue. I don't really know. You know, all the stuff he said could be legit, but there's still some things that bring up some warning signs. This guy's channel, I should say this guy, he's actually a father. I didn't know that. He actually was an ordained priest in 2015. I think he's around the same age as me when I heard him doing another video. So he's kind of a younger priest. Really great channel, underrated channel. I encourage you guys to check it out. He's a fellow legionary. He's a legionnaire that's like me. He's part of the Legion of Mary, so that's also pretty cool. But very cool channel. Check that out if you guys are interested. He had a great video on this subject. But a couple things that I want to talk about, just in, again, brief summary of what I was, my background with the book is that when I first read it, again, I loved it, found it entertaining. It was 2020 when I read it, and I believe this is my edition. I'm looking at it right here. Was second edition. So this was, I think it first was published in 2019. 2020 comes along. We all know what happened in 2020. It was a crazy year, and this is we started seeing an influx of all sorts of stuff. I mean, people that I knew and friends that were not religious at all, nominally Christian to say the least, all of a sudden they're talking to me about prophecies, talking to me about Revelation in the Bible. It was clear they didn't look too much into it other than hearing that people are hearing dreams like this and this is going to happen. And I made a video already about being leery and skeptical of these basically YouTube mystics that are on the rise, predicting certain things and basically, enticing us to click on these videos. I'm guilty of, and I said that in that previous video, that it's very easy, not just in the Catholic sphere, but any Christian religious sphere, to just make these sensationalized videos about end of the world prophecies, the rapture. Obviously, Catholics don't believe in the rapture, but as one negative reviewer pointed out in the warning in this on Amazon reviews, was saying this is kind of like the Catholic rapture. People kind of fall head into this stuff, and they can be taken for a ride, so to speak. So my point in making this video ultimately is we have to continue to be very, very skeptical. Particularly, you guys know, and this is no offense, obviously, Vince Segala, I don't know if you guys know, I've interviewed him on the channel. He was featured in this book. That's kind of how I found out about him, was from reading the warning. So, there's people in this book that I respect and I believe that their experience, which is why I wanted to talk, to Vince. It's not too often that you get a chance to talk to someone who has a pretty, sensationalized event happened to them. It's like someone, this is a bad analogy, but like someone who saw a UFO or Bigfoot or something like that. This is a horrible comparison, but something sensational that we didn't experience. So for me, when I did that interview with him, when I talked to him, I wanted to get information because I wanted to feel like I wanted to kind of sense what he sensed. I kind of wanted to pick his brain to see, not that I was trying to vet him out, but it was almost something I really want to just hear that experience for myself, because that's kind of the closest we can get without having the experience ourselves. And my point is, I believe him. I believe some other individuals in the book that I know, Marina Mastrepo, who I didn't know was even in this book, that I really liked and heard his testimony. He does a lot for the church. And that's kind of how proof to me is, how do I know if I think someone's more legit? Not saying you can't make money on what you're doing, but, Marina Mastrepo was someone who greatly changed his whole life around. Started a apostolate, doing a lot of things for the church. A lot of them, most of them free or charged whenever he goes to any conference. I think he just pays for people. He just asks to pay for, I think, just lodging and getting transportation and stuff. Same thing with Vince. I don't think Vince, what he's doing at his channel is a great channel. What he's doing is, for money. But with that being said, this book, and this isn't a bad thing, but this is something that kind of makes me raise the red flag a little bit, is that I've heard in a couple of accounts that I don't want to make any assumptions because I don't know where the profits of this book goes, but I have software and I publish ebooks, not a whole lot, but I've done that. And I can tell you, just banking on what my kind of little ebook software can tell me, this book makes a lot of money. It made a lot of money. It continues to make a lot of money month to month. Most people would consider a lot of money. And I've heard Christine Watkins say, again, I'm giving her the benefit of the doubt, and maybe I have totally no idea, so I totally accept that. But she was saying, this isn't for the money. It's not for that. And again, nothing wrong with making money, no question. But I guess my point in saying is that I guess what I'm questioning is that I know this book is making tons of money. It's up there as probably one of the most popular, best-selling Catholic books in recent years. You can compare it to look at Taylor Marshall's Infiltration, which is a bestseller. Look at any popular Catholic book. Look at the number of just 5-star ratings, and that also gives you kind of a gauge of how successful the book is. So the point is, this book is making a lot of money. And again, no problem with that. But when we start talking about mystics, internet mystics, stories and things of that nature, especially when it gets into things like the warning, individuals focused in on here, and even like YouTube mystics, and I hear people talking and saying like, well, I believe that it's imminent. And I'm not going to say individuals related to Queen of Peace Media, but there's some, but even Father Rodrigue, to a certain extent. Again, I don't know for sure because I can't quote off the top of my head, but I'll just say there's a lot of people that are so adamant that the end times are very near. The warning is going to happen within a few years. If I really felt that was the case, or even some of these YouTube mystics who are saying like, I need funding to keep this operation going or whatever, if you're that confident, I've heard this from Protestants too. Well, they'll predict something and like they're selling a book, which is fine. But if you're that confident this thing's going to happen within a few years, and it's like, just give the book away or just publish it for free online. Put your money where your mouth is. For sure, sell the book. Maybe give the money to someone who needs it. And my point is, I guess I don't really fully believe that they actually think it's coming anytime soon. Because if they were 100% confident, this book should just be given away or published and put online for free. So, which I will give it credit. The warning, there were free copies of the warning you can get. That was like a smaller edition. I've seen that and have all the stories in it. But that's something. The ultimate problem, again, I think that I focus in on are there's a few key individuals in the book and few events and few kind of themes this kind of touches on that it definitely is capitalizing, even though it doesn't stress it, but it's for sure what draws us in, why these stories are exciting. You're hearing a lot about mystical experiences. You're hearing a lot about supposed testimonies from either from Jesus or Mary directly. It can capitalize on things like fear, astonishment, and wonder. And these are all things that captivate us into any means by that nature. But when you start getting into characters, like Father Michael Rodrigue, if you watch his videos, I shouldn't say characters, all due respect, he is a father of the church. And he's on that video again, the YouTube channel I mentioned, and even Jimmy Akin looked into Father Michael Rodrigue. And I remember I looked into it a little bit, but my nephew reminded me that, there are some things that he predicted that just didn't come true. And he has this big following. And I think what ultimately I don't like about this book is I don't see a good deal or more of some healthy skepticism. I think it's good to kind of hear these things, and it's easy for all of us to kind of get pulled into these stories. But I think it's the level of skepticism always has to kind of be there. So if I'm listening to, for instance, Father Michael Rodrigue, and he's sharing these stories, and I hear the reactions in the crowd, a lot of these reactions are coming off with this open awe and astonishment, just really openly believing everything that comes out of his mouth. And I'm not saying you should, always give someone the benefit of the doubt, for sure. But I would be a little hesitant to just jump right into agree with everything someone is saying. And just because something is private revelation, we know we don't have to agree with it. But by that nature, it doesn't mean that could have been just meant for that person. And I think even Vince Sangala mentioned that. Vince mentioned that a few times, that this could have just been the message for him. And I believe that's the real thing. But what I start seeing in this community of maybe the Warning or other, even outside of the Catholic, but even like the Protestant Christian sphere, for sure in the Medjugorje world as well, and this is why I kind of have a hard time, it really gets in the way of my faith of even believing them, is that I hear so many people openly just jumping into every single thing that is around, let's say Medjugorje, or if it's the Warning or one of these other mystics or other channels, even Garabandal, which I'm more in favor of Garabandal, but even this channel I talked about, Father Miles, that's not his name. I think that's just the name. Sorry. The father who operates this channel got into that too. Had some things to be somewhat questionable about Garabandal and Medjugorje too. I mean, Medjugorje just is, there's so many things going on with Medjugorje that I would love to believe it. If I had more funds and more time, I would personally love to go out to Medjugorje myself and check it out. But there's so many sensational things that I obviously I wouldn't say not everything has to be true. And so if I was a Medjugorje believer or someone who's in the Garabandal or any other mystic, even the Flame of Love movement, which is something recent that I'm kind of getting into, that I forget the woman's name, Elizabeth Kindelman, that is something I've been looking into a little bit more as well. But with the same level of skepticism, recognizing there's some interesting things, theology and ways of devotions and call to holiness that maybe we can follow. But at the end of the day, my whole point in making this video is that if you're into this book or any kind of book or testimony, or even one that's a famous, I'm drawing some blanks here, but just there's a lot of famous mystics that said some things that were not fully church approved, but many people kind of accept them, is hopefully it's building on the faith, building on holiness, and not something that is just a sensational read. And I think that's sometimes what tends to happen is, that's what happened to me, admittedly. I got us into the sensation of reading it, and I was kind of searching for similar stories. And while I think there's definitely a call to holiness by, recognizing that really any of our times could be up at any day. So we're all going to face a warning of a sense of essentially, checking yourself. Check yourself before you wreck yourself, as they say. So I think there's legitimate things in here, but my point is that let's not recognize the fact that all this content sells for sure. We can't be naive to that extent, but just be careful who you're throwing all your cards in one basket. Because finally, I'll wrap up with this, and that's what I said I think with my mystics video too. That one of the things that's ultimately just not good about this whole thing is that this could be damaging to the faith. If all these things, let's say Garabandal, Medjugorje, one of the seers dies before what's supposed to happen is supposed to come to fruition. That was one of the predictions. And there's a lot of Catholics who I could see where they just, if this doesn't come true, if Medjugorje doesn't come true, they could throw the hat and be like, well, I put all my eggs in this basket. I really believed in this, and this is just all for nothing. Now, not for everybody, but my point is, if you have all these things are supposed to be happening and then they don't happen, that can be kind of damaging to the faith, which I think, as I said in the mystic videos, this is why the Catholic Church as a whole is very careful to claim things as being church-approved prophecies or church-approved miracles, even relating to canonized saints. These things are very careful, and they recognize that because it can do a lot of damage if it comes out to be a hoax or just doesn't come to fruition. So, kind of some ramblings here about the Warning, but I think it's something that's important if you're considering picking up this book. I would say it's fun. I almost would like to read it as, I would take it as kind of, I want to say half fiction, because I think some things are definitely great in here and I maybe believe in. But point is, I look at it more as entertainment more so than, and maybe that's not fair. I'm saying that kind of off the cuff. But my point is, I think you got to look at it with a healthy level of skepticism. And obviously, above all else, if you're going to be applying these things to your own life, making sure we're actually living out the faith. Going to some of the key sources, obviously the Bible, and early church fathers and church history, traditional church teachings, before we start jumping the gun on, I'm not saying this is against Father Rodrigue, but some renegade priest who is just saying some things that are a little bit off the cuff and different to what someone else is saying. So that's it. Kind of want to hear your thoughts on this too, if anyone else is in my camp or totally against me on this, but that's it. Thanks.